Well, this is literally one of my favorite topics to discuss in the summertime because, sure, we get away from talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and everything that's really on the mind of a lot of people, but we also get a chance to discuss the rich history of Philadelphia basketball and what it means to so many. And to hear, again, just hear it talked about the way that it is all around the country and certainly here in the area, and what we'll get into with the Danny Rumph Classic in just a little bit. It's really one of the best conversations that I enjoy having, talking about the history of Philadelphia basketball. And I'm going to do that today, as always, talking hoops with my guys, Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is behind the glass. All of you in the chat. So a little bit different today because of the start of the Danny Rumph Classic, which tips off on Thursday, August 1st. It's game first day. It's a 5-day thing that runs from August 1st through the 5th. It's always a great time. So many stories that come out of it and so many people that, hey, you may not have known this person was going to be there or that person was going to show up in
like
a uniform.
To keep things pretty secret leading up to it, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's going to be fun to talk to the guys about it. Just in general, Mike Morak, who runs the Danny Rumph Classic, has for 19 years. The Classic has been going on. This is year number 19. And with it being year number 19, they're approaching 20. So you expect something pretty big for next year as well. But we'll also get into the origin history of the Danny Rumph Classic, what it means, as Mike stops by a little bit later, joining us here live in studio to discuss the game, the meaning of it, the impact on the city, and so much more. Me growing up as a city guy, growing up in West Philly and Winfield specifically, right off of City Line Avenue, but still tucked in West Philly. I had a chance to see a lot of people. I played in the public league, so I had a chance to play against a lot of players. Still have friendships with those players. Kyle, in the school that he went to, saw some great players. Derek has seen some great players as well, coming out of not just the city, but in and around the city, and how good the players are here. And I remember when we used to do the show in the past, I would talk about it, and I would get calls from Camden, Coatesville, Chester, and Norristown.
Right? The definition of Philadelphia expands as soon as you.
But I think it's kind of understood that it's the in and around. So it's New Jersey, it's Philadelphia, everything. I see Aaron talking about it. Rumph Classic, the TBT tournament going on at LaSalle. Great week for hoops in Philadelphia, and that's what it's all about. So Kyle, just your thoughts on Philadelphia basketball in general. Of course, it does span to the Sixers because some local players play here. They are ingrained in the city. They play in the Rumph Classic. But for you, being just on the outskirts of Philadelphia, but also in parts of Philadelphia, seeing players coming from high school or your general area of the neighborhood that you grew up in, just your thoughts on the basketball in general.
Yeah, so I'll tell a little bit of kind of my backstory because we're kind of talking about. It's like high school hoops, right? Yep. And then like how that evolves. So
street ball hoops.
I went to Happer Horsham, which it's probably 45 minutes outside the city or so. And I actually I've said this on the show, or I've mentioned it in other places as well. I lived down the street from the Carroll brothers. So Matt, he was one of the leading scorers in Pennsylvania history. Pat, most of you know from the St. Joe's team in 2004, played with Jameer Nelson, played with Delonte West and all those guys. And they go on that run to the Elite Eight, fall in heartbreaking fashion to John Lucas. And so as I became a basketball fan, watching Allen Iverson and those guys growing up, my local connection to it was like, because Matt was so good and Pat was also, a great player in his own right, I would get to go to a lot of these like district playoffs, state playoffs, and see them as they went from playing, the local teams that frankly, when you have a guy who made the NBA later and another guy who played high level D1, they were kicking the shit out of most of the local teams. But then you get to, they're playing, I'm pretty sure it was either in districts or states one year. They played Chester, and going on the road to play Chester and seeing like the basketball culture there. And like, obviously everyone knows that now. They've been a powerhouse for quite a long time. But that was kind of my first taste of, not growing up in the city, but growing up outside the city, kind of like that's connected to the culture. And then as you get older, you move down to the city, you learn about events like the Rumph, you learn about the Sunny Hill League and all these things that are just these staples of Philadelphia. This one, like, it's crazy to think that the Rumph has now been going for 19 years, right? Like I remember first learning about it when I was a kid, basically. And now I'm a grown ass man with a house in Philadelphia. And this is a Philadelphia basketball institution. So I'm excited to have Mike in here to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, my kind of general impression of Philadelphia hoops is just, it's a reflection of the city in so many ways, right? Like a lot of guys who come out with a lot of toughness, a lot of swagger. You think I was a kid when Rasheed Wallace playing at Gratz and then goes on to UNC, playing in the NBA, all that. So that's kind of what I think of as like a trash talking, talented, like a lot of guys. I mean, Dion Waiters, for example, that type of guy. Scoop Jardine, another guy who played at Syracuse as well.
Rick Jackson played with them also.
Yes. Yep. So that's kind of the profile you think of when you think of Philadelphia, or when I think of Philadelphia basketball. And as we were talking about yesterday, I love guys who go out there and talk some trash and have some fun. So that's what I think basketball is all about.
Well, you get that from the likes of the Morris brothers there. You get that from Dion Waiters and so many more. But just your general thoughts of the city's rich history of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, so I've mentioned this before. I've come from the Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania. Aaron Gray, probably the biggest name that came out of our high school. Not a very big name. Honestly, the Valley was a little more
Pittsburgh, man.
Pittsburgh, Chicago, right? Toronto, I think he went to.
Played for the Pelicans with Chris Paul, I believe, back in the day.
But admittedly, the Valley is more of a football area than it is basketball area. But coming to Philly and going to Drexel and seeing all the games at the Palestra, I remember going to see LeBron James way back in the day.
In the game?
Maurice Rice.
Yeah, I was there.
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't have a ticket. Got snuck in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably a story for another day. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Man, that was years ago. It's all good now. All
Past
good.
the statute of limitations.
We finally find Devon committing something very small. But
had to be in the building, man.
Petty crime.
Had to be in the building.
But just seeing more of the college experience there, and a lot of the high school as well. It really was eye-opening and just a great, like, you start learning about the history. And there's a lot of history. It dates back very long. You think about, like, Chicago and New York as being up there, and then Philly is probably right there with everyone else. It really is a great, long-standing tradition and history in the city. And it's, obviously, the Sixers get a lot of attention. And then, obviously, the Big Five get a lot of attention, but it goes so much deeper.
Although
than that.
less so in recent, I feel like that's one of the real shames of
how
college basketball
just started
has
dominating
changed.
everything, and then the rivalries sort of went out the window a little bit. But it will be great too.
I miss John Chaney, man. Like I miss,
my God,
that's
man.
part of it too, right? It's like John
Exactly.
Chaney was such a perfect sort of representative of Philadelphia basketball culture. Like I'll never forget when he went at Calipari back in the day.
Classic.
Like what a moment that was. But that was also, that's how his teams played, right? Like they were defense first. They were get up in your
sometimes a little too far,
a little too physical at times, but that was the edge that they played with. That's why they were able to, teams would come in to North Philly and they would struggle to win because not only are you playing in a hostile environment, you're playing a team that has built an identity essentially over decades. Like there was John Chaney's teams played one way and that was 100 miles an hour for each other all the time. Love John Chaney.
And was never afraid to schedule against anybody, anywhere, anytime. It did not matter.
Yes.
His team would show up and they would play. So when you mentioned like Rasheed Wallace, so growing up in the city, my older cousins, I talk about this all the time. I always give them a lot of credit for, whatever I've done with my career. And so in basketball, growing up with them, my older cousins were 3 years older than me. And there's three of them that did that for me. That was my cousin Till, my cousin Sean, and Jack, Mikkel's dad. And so Sean was at FLC. And when he was at FLC, Sean Colson, Tyrone Weeks, these names that just start jumping off that did make it to the pros or play high-level Division I basketball and all that. Jack was at Roxborough. I followed Jack to Roxborough in that way. First time I met Rasheed Wallace because Jack was a star. He and Rasheed were cool because they played against each other all the time. And I was starstruck because it was Rasheed Wallace, to your point, right? And I was like, whoa, that's Rasheed Wallace right there. And again, Sean introduced me to Colson and Tyrone Weeks and those guys. Till was at Overbrook, so I got a chance to meet those guys, Lawrence Pembroke and all these names that were big time city names. And I just wanted to do that. I wanted to play in that place. So remember we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned, I inadvertently said the convention center because I was thinking it was the Civic Center, 34th, right down there by University City. And being and playing in those games, you saw so much, man. You saw so many of these guys. And there's so many names that have come out of the city, whether they played overseas and didn't make it to the NBA or played in the NBA. Did not at all, because you talk about the street ballers too. I just mentioned Lawrence Pembroke. A lot of people don't really know who he is. Ronald Keenan, those same guys that went to Overbrook, they were stars though at that time that were good enough to play Division I basketball. We mentioned Rip Hamilton earlier. I went to Lincoln University, a Division III school. One of his buddies from Coatesville was at Lincoln with me. He was one of the best players from Coatesville. Daryl Lewis, Shaddy, what's up, Shaddy? And he was so good that he got invited from the D3 all the way out to the D3 showcase after his senior year for the NBA to try out for teams. Flip Murray, Rumph Classic, legend for what Flip did. Shaw University from Strawberry Mansion. Played D2 at Shaw and wound up getting selected in the second round by the then Seattle Supersonics. Led the league in scoring at one point when Ray Allen was out. And Flip was just that good. So you have so many names that I have seen come through. I played against Terrell Stokes, Red Smith, Sean Red Smith, Lennar Stewart. We talk about Len Greer a lot. Len is my guy. I mean, we'll get Len to come in here one day and sit down and talk some things as well. But just so many of these guys that you play against or you just got a chance to know over the years. And then even after the ones that I didn't play against, but I've been around some of the others, and I got to be introduced to them through the other guys that I may know a little bit from mutual friendships. That the basketball history is rich in this area, and it's great. And to your point of Matt and Pat Carroll, man, watching those dudes shoot the way they did, or Matt Walsh when he was coming out, and it's like, oh, you kind of gravitate to them no matter where they go, Florida, Notre Dame, whatever it is. You just gravitate to them because they represent the area, period. And that's what they do. And then you see them come back. And we talk
that's
about
why people are
Classic.
so mad about the Nova Knicks, right? It's
Very
like
true.
A bunch of those guys are, or at least one prominent one now is a actual Philly guy, right? And everyone's always like, it's that idea of like, oh, it's a hometown kid, like it'd be such a great story. I mean, I don't have to get into it with you, obviously, with your cousin, but it's just like this romanticized thing, and to have it in front of you and then lose it and watch that guy succeed elsewhere, it cuts a little bit deeper because of that.
Yeah, man. But again, I can just run off so many names. And you know what? While we do this, because this is one thing that, as we talk about some names, I'll get Derek and Kyle's thoughts on just some names over the years that they've had a chance to see and watch from, maybe from the high school level and then all the way to the collegiate level, maybe even the NBA, that were just so good. But also all of you in the chat, because we know we have some of the favorite players that maybe even don't get mentioned in the chat as well. Because I remember we were talking about something about finding roles in the NBA. And I didn't mention the kid's name. I just said I was talking to one of the Philadelphia kids that came back and he played, and I was so happy and proud to see him in the NBA uniform. So I know his dad. Again, just talking about Antoine Brockington was my guy, and we happened to be neighbors. And I was a big fan of Twan when he played at Northeast. He went on to play at Coppin State with Fred Warwick, Hakeem Warwick's older cousin, and Turk Mott, who was tough.
Name dropper Devon over here is going crazy.
So that's really what this whole show is, an excuse for
just
Devon
like
to name drop.
Devon's just going to name some guys that he knows. That's today's show, everyone. Thank you for coming.
So me and Twan were neighbors, so I got to get to know his kids a little bit.
Yeah.
And I got to see Isaiah grow up and play big-time high school basketball, then go on to play at Iowa State and transfer to Penn State and play big-time basketball at St. Bonaventure because of the transfer portal and what he did. And he came back this year, and I was so happy to see him. We were talking in the back as he was stuffing his face in the locker room, pregame meal. And it was great to see him in a New Orleans Pelicans uniform. And it was dope just to see that because he would be out there with his dad. We'd be talking about basketball stuff. I'm talking to him about Mikal. And we'd be talking about Reggie Redding and all of that stuff, who you guys both know as a player development coach for the 76ers. And it was just so cool to see Isaiah in an NBA uniform. So there are names that will be dropped as we discuss this that people forget about.
A new name, too. Part of the reason we had some excitement about Justin Edwards is like, look, he left the city and everyone had pretty high expectations for him, right? He was big-time player while I was here. He goes to a big-time program, plays for Calipari. Has a disappointing year, but now he's able to come back to where he's from, and we'll see if that gets him back on track. He showed some flashes in the summer league, so that's just like a fun, on top of like he's an interesting talent bet for them on a two-way deal. It's also just an interesting local story, right? It's you root for him not because he plays for the Sixers, but because he's from Philadelphia and you want all the local guys to put on for the city and represent for all of us.
Yeah, whether he's in the Sixers uniform or Utah
or
Jazz
the blue
uniform,
coats,
or the blue coats, wherever he
is.
is, you just root for the kid. And so we'll get to some more names on the other side. Talk about the Danny Rumph Classic a little bit as we wait for Mike to join us here in the studio as well, because there are a ton of names. Yes, you're right. I can drop a lot of names, not necessarily that I know, just the ones that I can remember and talk about.
You don't have to be humble.
No, hey, this is a fun topic. I always love discussing this, and we'll keep it going right here on this Tuesday edition of the PHLY Sixers podcast.
First up, we want to tell you about Rite Aid, specifically with LO Market. I do have to shame Vince a little bit. I feel like he's pretty good about stocking us up with sweets. There are none in the building.
Vince, where are you at,
That being said, I'm not going to get on too much because I have no impulse control when it comes to sweets, and the LO Market ones are specifically true. This line includes candy, snacks, and pantry items exclusively at Rite Aid. Products include candy from classics like
having
Beach
trouble
Rings.
over there with the
I
products.
always have trouble. And Starlight Mints to gummy butterflies and sour worms. Nuts and trail mixes, which are packed with vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, fiber, and protein. They have popcorn, buttery, sweet, and salty. Cheddar and sea salt. There's also a lot of beef jerky. I eat a ton of beef jerky. It is one of my go-to snacks, which is packed with protein. Granola, pantry staples like honey and seasonings. Snack Attack, get LO Market delivered same day or buy online, pick up in store, go to riteaid.com/shop to order.
Derek with the products, like Steve Ballmer over there with the developers. What I have for you is another product, a great product. That's the great service from our friends at Mint Mobile. Guys, after years of getting ripped off by overpriced wireless providers, you feel like there's always a catch when you hear, wow, what a great deal. Oh, look at new customers can get this. New customers can get that. It all ends up being a ripoff in the end. So when I heard from Mint Mobile, $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, I thought,
I'm on it right now, folks.
Got to be a scam. There's got to be some kind of catch here. After talking to them, it all made sense. There is no scam. The plan is the plan, and it's exactly what they tell you that it is. The secret sauce is that they sell wireless service online, no retail stores, no salespeople. They sell it directly to you. They cut out the middleman and say, we're going to pass those savings along to you, the customer. Thank you very much, Ryan Reynolds, for my $15 a month plan. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. Maybe Deadpool will rescue you too. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring your phone number, all your existing contacts, and the switch over is painless. It's super easy. But if you run into any problems, their customer service, from what I've heard, is also excellent. So you can always turn to them for any of your needs that you have. Ditch the overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's limited time deal. Get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Sixers. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds lower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Look at that speed. Look at that speed there on that.
It's a
read on
lot
the-
shorter
on the
than
disclaimer.
when we did some of the gambling stuff.
Yeah.
That now we have our wonderful friends at Bet365 that are helping us out, obviously, but we got used to some very long ones on that. So speed reading improving over time here at PHLY.
Did Ryan Reynolds send you the free ticket to see Deadpool and Wolverine? Did he send you that on your Mint Mobile? Or he did not?
I haven't gotten one yet, sadly. Although
talk to him about
no
that.
shade to Ryan Reynolds. I think I'm kind of just out on Marvel stuff at this point. And it's not. I am not going to pretend like I'm above Marvel. I loved a lot of the movies in the MCU for a while. It does feel like it has just kind of ship has sailed when you're going back to
twisted it now.
Robert Downey Jr. and saying, "Hey, play a different character,
scare everybody."
I don't know, man. Come on,
scare everybody.
Hey, we're bringing back the Russo brothers and Robert Downey Jr. is back.
Absolutely. All right, Derek, as we get ready, again, just talking about the Danny Rumph Classic Philadelphia basketball hoops, who are some of your favorites? Again, just watching from afar and then being in the city, you, Drexel, Malik Rose, of course, friend to the show, Malik Overbrook and Drexel. Played a long time, won some championships with the Spurs. Some of your favorites, going back to, like Malik Rose, even going back to that far as the name goes.
I also had a chance to beat Malik Rose in the fantasy basketball league a couple years in a row.
Wow, humble brag.
He had to eventually leave when he started taking front office jobs, but that's all right. He had a slightly better pro basketball career than I did, so I guess we will let him pass on that one. Slightly better. No, I mean, I think Malik is probably my favorite, but I'm a little biased because of the Drexel connection, because I got to know him a little bit when he was here. Just a great dude, absolutely great dude.
He's the best.
Mike Morak, I feel like probably doesn't get mentioned enough. Probably came right up around that right time.
Now a scout for the Detroit Pistons.
You always know when he's at a Sixers game because he's the tallest guy on the whole scouting row. It's hard to miss him.
And then that whole Jameer Delonte team was probably the one I bonded with the most. That wasn't the Drexel team. That was one that it's really connected. It was a magical run. That was one of my favorite periods of Philly basketball.
When Jameer did not make that shot, it was a good shot. Nobody, I don't think batted an eye when he pulled up and said, "I'm shooting this one."
He's making those shots all year.
All year. No big deal. It was a magical run by that team. Hakeem Morak, you're right. The block for Syracuse against Kansas to help secure that national championship with Carmelo Anthony, Malik Rose, as you talked about, that St. Joe's team was great. How about you, Kyle?
I mean, so I have the legitimate personal connection to that St. Joe's team because Pat was such an integral part of that team. But I've like all those guys, like Jameer. I'm actually slightly taller than him now, I think, now that I say it. But I was going to say, so as a kid, I didn't hit a growth spurt until, honestly, probably like right around that year. And so I always identified more with like that type of college guard, right? Like the 6 foot tall floor general shot maker type. And for him to be that guy for not only just a team in the city, but a team that he's playing with my neighbor, a guy that I knew growing up, like know his whole family. I graduated with their younger sister. I was like, man, this guy is the man. And I was like, then beyond that, right? Like he has that great year. And there are a lot of doubts from the public about like, okay, what kind of pro can Jameer be, right? Because he did have those size limitations, and Jameer had a really good career, had a really good stretch there.
Was an all-star
when he's playing with Dwight Howard in Orlando specifically, and kind of showed exactly what I was saying earlier, like that level of Philly toughness and overcoming whatever limitations that he had. So I've always loved Jameer, and obviously now we get to work with him, so to speak, when he's around, working with the Blue Coats, working with the Sixers organization. Another guy, because of the personal connection, it's weird because he was a big time rival of Matt's, but was John Salmons, who played at Plymouth Whitemarsh. And I remember at the time they had a bunch of, because they played, I don't remember if they played in like regular season schedule or not. It might have just been in like district playoffs, but their teams were always good at the same time during those 4 years. So they're playing in these playoff games and whatnot a lot. And I'll never forget, Matt was like Mr. Basketball for the state of Pennsylvania. Got a ton of hype. Now, some of it deservedly so. Some of it, as John Salmon said, he's like, if Matt Carroll was black, I'm not sure he'd be getting all this publicity. And it was like there were people who were pissed off at the time. But with hindsight, it's like, I'm sure that there's a little bit of that. But John Salmon goes on to, I think he played at Miami,
He played
right?
at Miami, yep.
And then went on to have like a decent career. Played actually for the Sixers at some point.
Yeah.
And so despite the fact that he was coming at, my guy, my neighbor, guy I like looked up to a little bit when I was a kid, it was just like, all right, that's the feistiness. And it was after he beat him. I think it was at PW. It was a big time game because those games were all like for the local battles were very decisive games, whether they were playoffs or for conference titles, anything else. And so they won, and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna talk my shit. And I was like, tip of the cap to you, John Salmon.
You like the trash talk.
But those are the guys I like. So I respected it. He came out, he said what he felt. It did not win him a lot of friends in my hometown, but I enjoyed his theatrics in the NBA. He had some random just like scoring explosions from time to time. Was never like a core piece anywhere, but was a guy who could randomly give you 20 on a given night. And that was, for a local kid, that's really good. Jameer is one of the high-end examples of the last 20-ish years of a guy from Philly who had like a real productive NBA career.
Yeah, Salmons was a really good one. I think he was drafted by the Spurs before he was traded to the Sixers, and then had a Chicago and a few other teams that he played for.
Wasn't that a draft night trade though?
Yeah, I think it was, and I think he also played for Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. John Salmons, but he
played
had
12 years.
He had a really nice career. John Salmons did, and just quietly
Sixers,
goes about his
Kings,
business.
Bulls, Bucks, back to the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
And then finished with Toronto and the Pelicans. He played until he was 35.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good career, honestly, for a guy who was just kind of I'd say somewhere between like sixth or ninth man at any point in his career.
So I had some ones that I really liked to watch when they were in college, and then just playing. Some made it to the league, like Marty Collins was a good one coming from Gratz, and famously getting to that big fight at the Garden with Carmelo Anthony. When Carmelo started backpedaling after he snuck Marty, and Nate Robinson came to the rescue and was trying to destroy everything underneath the bench. But so John Salmons was fun. The Collins guy, the Carroll twins. Not the twins, but the Carroll guys.
He was traded for Speedy
Claxton. Yeah,
guy used to terrorize me at Drexel.
Another blast from the past.
How about that, Hofstra, Speedy Claxton. And then so I had guys like that, Marty Collins, Deontay Christmas, had a really nice career. You just thought about him. Also, cup of tea here in the NBA. Malik Wayans, the same thing. He was with the Sixers in the beginning, then he goes to the Clippers. He's on the roster for a little bit. Alvin Williams doesn't get talked about a lot for the career that turned out as a second-round pick out of Villanova.
He was a villain.
Fair with the Toronto Raptors, but he cooked the Knicks in that first round and made that.
I remembered another guy who played at Temple that I forgot was a local kid. Khalif Wyatt was a fun one, because when he was there were a lot of Norristown Chester battles, right? Like he was the guy and Chester was Chester, so it was tough to unseat them.
If we did this show for an hour, we would all
just
end up
name
like
some
Devon.
guys.
It's like, oh my God, I completely forgot he was from Philly, or I completely forgot about his NBA career.
So I found out about Khalif Wyatt because, to you guys' point, just playing basketball, know some people in Norristown who I played with for a long time. And one of the guys that was on his team would play. He was their age. Mm-hmm. He would come play with us when he was like a freshman. Russ Graham. Him and Khalif were on the same team together. So when Russ was there, Khalif was there. They were the big names on the team. Russ wound up going to St. Bonaventure. Khalif went to Temple. And that's how I found out about Khalif Wyatt, because of those guys in Norristown. And he was tough. Old man game. And
dude, he was a killer at Temple.
Tough.
He was scoring like 20 points a game. And that's not – scoring 20 points a game in college is hard. Yeah. One, because you don't play as many minutes. Two, the coaches won't give you the ball enough to let you get there. So to get into that type of territory – I don't care what level you're playing at. I don't care what conference you're in. Like that is a real genuine scorer if you're getting a 20 a game.
Yeah.
At any kind of D1 program.
And when you talk about John Chaney, he just did such a great job with recruiting the players that will come in and do their part. And it was just fantastic to see him get to these players and they would turn out to be who they turned out to be. I always heard about Lynn because my people were at ENS when he was there. One of my guys was the star of the team at that point. So he was like, yo, we got this freshman. And there he was. It was Lynn Greer that turned out to be what he was. And he was an all-pub guy for year after year after year after year before going on to Temple, had interests all over the place. And then going back to even when I was younger, and Randy Woods and Lionel Simmons and all of those names that you want to throw out there as we talk about Alvin Williams and such. Aaron McKee, who we mentioned, but we just kind of mentioned in passing. Aaron was that guy who also went to Temple. And
he was a Gratz guy, right?
Yeah. And did his thing. Leonard Stewart we mentioned, and so many of those Gratz players that went on to do so many different things. Jared Kears going to West Virginia, and we can just sit here and just name names and just keep running with all the
what
names.
Dudes do. We just sit around and name names.
That's one of the most true tweets ever is the person who was like, men will literally just sit around and name old athletes. It's like, you're correct. That's exactly what we're doing right now.
Right. So just so many of them, and we can keep those names going, which we will. And as we await for Mike to check in and join us. So I'll think of some more names to throw out there and read them on the screen. I see a few of you were talking about Malik Rose, Malik Wayans. Was McKee from Philly Darkness at? Of course. Yes, he absolutely was, as we know. I think he knows. He's just being funny. But throw some more names out there and talk about it, as some of them have played in the Danny Rumph Classic. We'll talk to Mike about that shortly right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Well, guys, just like there's a bright future ahead for Philadelphia basketball, there's a bright future ahead for you. Whether it's the rest of this summer, the rest of the year, got to protect your eyes when you're outside. Our friends at Shady Rays have you prepared for the season ahead. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics. They're the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Probably even have a pair that's in your favorite team's colors, no matter who that is. You guys have seen me wear them on the show. I wear them to the beach. I wear them in the car. They always keep me crystal clear and with the sun out of my eyes. And if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com, use code PHLY for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Also want to tell you about our good friends from FOCO. You see behind us on the set, we have these great set pieces with all the characters behind us here on the shelf. Great FOCO product placement there as leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. Best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Going to a basketball or hockey game? Well, show your love with the team-branded friendship bracelets. Whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, or even overalls, there is something for fans almost every occasion. FOCO has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome set pieces for us here at the studios. FOCO always has our back for PHLY Sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description for all non-presale items. Use promo code PHLY10, and that's for 10% off. And with the FOCO things we have behind us, I don't think I ever told you guys, as Mike steps here in the studio, the basketball backboard here that we have sitting right behind us, you'll see it behind me and Derek.
I never noticed that.
So. Mike gave us that backboard to bring in and have on the set of the studio. I'm like, yo, I need some stuff for the studio. So Mike Morak was like, take this one and put this one on the shelf as we join everybody here as we come back from our break. And we're joined by the man again. We've been talking about the Rumph Classic, the Danny Rumph Classic, the 19th annual classic beginning on Thursday, August 1st, runs through the 5th, which is next Monday, the championship game. And as we discuss all the Philadelphia basketball and all the great things about it, we are here and joined by a good friend of mine, and here with Kyle and Derek, Mike Morak, who runs the Danny Rumph Classic. And you've been very, very busy, appearing everywhere, and you've taken some time to join us here in the studio. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Devon, always a pleasure. You're part of the family, man. So thank you for just having me, on here on the platform. Appreciate you guys mentioning me today. I've got a couple text messages said I was late, so I apologize.
We didn't say you were late.
Those words did not come from us, I promise.
Not at all. As Dwayne Wilson says, Rasheed Brokenborough knocked me out.
We've just played Remember Some Guys in Philadelphia basketball for about a half hour. So I don't know if you have a bunch of names you want to throw out there along with us.
Yeah. If you get me started, I could probably rattle off for a full 2 hours of some great players because, this is the 19th year we're doing the Rumph Classic, and, this is being the 19th year, we've had so many great players that have come by and participated that we forget, right? So year one, I can remember a guy named Antoine Brockington.
Talked
played
about
at Coppin
earlier.
State.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan from Penn played. Hakeem Hart Sr. played. So being able to go through the whole list of guys that, the generations of Philly basketball players that we've been fortunate enough to play with. And, even Danny Rumph's uncle, Marcus Owens, and, Danny Rumph's dad, Money, and his uncles were all great basketball players. And, the great Ted Solari's got an amazing list of, legendary Philly high school hoopers. And, those guys are all on that list. So it's been cool to see. We've been doing it too long to start forgetting guys.
So Jess asked, she said, Devon, what's written on your hat? Well, this is the back of the hat, so I'll show you the front of the hat now that Mike is in here. My Danny Rumph hat that I got, a couple of years ago.
Merch.
Oh, well, I got a bunch of that. So, but Mike, for a lot of people, they know about the 19th annual, of course, as you talked about it, but they think of it as just the basketball. It's not just about the basketball. It started for a reason because of the basketball, and that is Danny Rumph. You had a chance of growing up with Danny, playing with Danny at the rec center, and playing with him for many, many years. You and a bunch of your friends who are a part of the entire event and the classic with the family. And for those who don't know about the basketball piece of it and why you really put things out there, it's always save the next star and all of it. It's always a tough thing to discuss, but you always want to get that message out there as to why this was started in the first place. So could you share it with the people who don't know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. In 2005, Danny Rumph was a starting point guard at Western Kentucky University. He was at home playing with, he actually was playing with his uncle and his friends in the morning. And then in the evening, a bunch of our friends got together to hoop, and, he collapsed of a heart disease that was undiagnosed at the time. He had something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Never had a heart screening. He was a Division I athlete. There was no AED in the gym. Ambulance took 45 minutes to get there. Nobody in the gym knew CPR. So a lot of those elements just created this thing of, we're unable to save his life. So his uncle Marcus and his mom started a foundation. They said, let's figure out how to get defibrillators into the rec centers. So through the foundation, we've been able to help get 100 plus defibrillators in the rec centers along with the fire department. We just recently donated 15 to the Philadelphia Boys and Girls Club. We've got 20 going into the Delaware Boys and Girls Club in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of it is along with our heart screenings for young athletes, is just trying to really support, how do you save the next bright star? So every time we do one of these heart screenings, we probably find 2 to 3 kids that suffer from some type of heart abnormality that, we really believe that the work, which is the most important thing, is finding this next kid that is a star, and we're able to save his life. So one of our hashtags is save the next bright star. And when we're doing things with our younger kids, they're the next bright stars.
When you guys started this way back when, I'm sure still is very personal to you, was very personal, but did you have any idea, any inclination that it could turn into something where when you guys are having guys like James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, these big time players, big time stars come out and make it a point to show up and be part of something that now is really ingrained in the Philadelphia basketball community?
I think at the time I wasn't doing an internship with a brand called And One. So I was an And One guy. So I always worked and was in the summer basketball space, and we always wanted to build it towards.
I probably bought a lot of product from you at one point. Yeah.
So it was also we would find guys around the city that was our James Harden, right? Jared Kearse was one of our first year MVPs, won the championship. A gentleman named Nick King, There was another guy in West Philly nicknamed Face. Like I just saw him a couple weeks ago. You know, getting Michael Jordan to come play, getting Antoine Brockington, getting these guys.
Penn Michael Jordan, everybody.
Penn Michael Jordan. Even, you know, being able to have the Sharif Brace who started the foundation, like him on the court. Like we all thought our guys were some of the best guys in the planet, right? Like this is before you realize also how much basketball really goes on in the world. So I think, and Hakeem Warwick has played for almost the first 14 years that we played. Hakeem played AAU basketball with Danny, having a guy like Mustafa Shakur. So getting those guys just to come play from day one. Yeah. Sean Singletary that played at Virginia, you know, having all these guys that we were in the gym with consistently as kids. Now it's like they're all going on to their careers and they come back and still play. So, you know, I don't know if we ever thought we'd get to the level of like NBA MVPs and guys that just won championships. You know, super fortunate to go down the line to have the James Hardens, the Jason Tatums, the John Walls, the Bones Highland, you know, Lou Williams. Like we've got a really impressive or an extensive list that's really fun to look back on sometimes. But it's also like when we were just 22, 23 years old and just a bunch of our friends just trying to play basketball. That's like also the power of what a Philadelphia Rec Center means to you and what your friends are. And, you know, it's the same group of guys that are still running it today. You know, Justin Scott, assistant basketball coach at St. Joe's. Sharif Bray, an assistant coach at Cheltenham High School, still, I think, one of the best trainers in the city. Sharif Hanford runs Danny Rumph basketball. We've got 6 youth teams playing around the city at any given time. Brandon Huff has an AU program called Sean Warner Elite. So everybody that we're still together day to day comes together to help do this. And we've got another 90, you know, person volunteer staff that are doing really good things in the sports or entertainment space. And, you know, it's just another way to show what does it mean to, you know, do things together. What is a neighborhood? What does a rec center kind of really represent? And how does that, you know, become the fabric of what Philly basketball is?
And to add on to that really quickly is that when you talk about how big it's gotten, not just here locally, but it's also known around the country, where last summer there were 4 Pro-Am teams that played in the tournament together in Los Angeles, and the Danny Rumph team was a part of that from, what was it, New York, Miami, LA, and Philadelphia, right?
Yeah. We do 6, Atlanta and Baltimore in it as well. So that's something we call the PABC, again, connectivity with cities, people that are doing like-minded things. So, you know, being able to do that and then showcase our talent and being seen as like one of the best leagues in the country is always like really important to us. So I look at, you know, what we've done as a city, and I think that's what's fun is like we call it the Philly basketball barbecue. You know, you're going to be able to see all the different high school coaches, the college coaches, your teammates, the guys you played middle school basketball with, the guys you know played maybe overseas with. So it's kind of fun to then see all these guys that go around the world. And you know, we looked at it one year, we represented about 50 different countries around the world of like who was playing and where they went to. So, you know, a lot of stuff just becomes fun, man, of like being able to, you know, get to, you know, I'm 41 now, to be able to do this for 19 years with the same group of guys that we started with. And we're all still best friends to, you know, and with the family to be able to come in there and be like, man, like here's pictures from when we started and, you know, how much we've all gotten a little bit older and the grades are getting a little stronger.
I know that feeling.
Shakur, I feel like that's one we should have. When we were playing our game of like name athletes, I feel like that one should have come up.
Not to mention he snuck Iguodala in the back door for Billy King and them to try to work him out before the draft and sneakily taking him at number 9.
You mentioned
good player himself,
heart screenings. And I think when I looked at this a couple of years ago, I was pretty shocked at how infrequently kids get screened. Do you like, has that improved at all? Like, what's the importance of that? How much of this is preventable?
I don't know if it's improved at all because it's not mandatory. So I think part of what we're looking at doing, or what we've been doing with Dr. Megan Vetter at a children's hospital, you know, she's running a study and it's about showing like how much issues kids have to then hopefully get it checked where like that's part of your back to school checkup. So I think until they start really changing what it's required for, you're not going to be able to see them as much as you would like to. So, you know, I'm not 100% sure like if they do them, if you're a Division I athlete or Division II, but, you know, I hope that it's trending that direction because it's kind of crazy. A guy goes to the NBA draft and they find something wrong with his heart going through that process as opposed to going to college or going into high school. So,
no, I have no idea if it's just like a cost concern in high school and college or whatnot, but like that's a pretty important part of your body. You would want to know if there's any kind of underlying cause.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That's why like our heart screenings are completely free. Right. You know, we go ages 5 through 19. It can be very scary too, like for parents to go fill out the paperwork, you know, go through the process. And, you know, some people don't know necessarily their family heart history or health history.
Some people probably also don't want to know really too, right? There's that fear of like, well, if I don't look, then nothing can be wrong, right? And trying to work past kind of those anxieties that people have with this kind of stuff.
So our next heart screening is in October. Get you guys the information. Love for you to we can talk about it. We can see it, but you'll be surprised that some people respond like either they're too busy that day or, oh, we're going to miss it, or we don't have the couple hours, or they may just not want to know. And we had one kid that came into the heart screening. The doctor had to tell him they can't play today until further testing. They then were unable to play sports moving forward, and they just graduated college a couple of years ago. So to be able to see that transition, we've been doing it that long, and know that we're really making an impact is something special. And somebody that's close to me, our last heart screening, they had to get a defibrillator to actually carry around with them for a couple of weeks until they had additional testing. And it's not really that scary until it hits really close to home. And then you're like, man, everybody should have this. So it's trying to figure out like, how do you get people to take it a little more serious when we do it?
Yeah. And what's the kid's name? I think it's Isaiah. Was it Austin from Baylor? The one kid who dealt getting ready for the NBA, and he found out, and then they said he just could no longer play because of that issue. Now we've seen him since in the Big Three, I think it has been, and playing a little bit, but for the most part, if you don't detect it and you find out a little bit later, to your point, it can certainly end up in a pretty bad way.
And I think it's one of those things that people don't follow up when kids pass away. So like when something happens, somebody collapses, like we immediately resonated with cardiomyopathy or HCM, but like that's what Hank Gathers passed away from. Mm-hmm. It's what Reggie Lewis passed away from. It's what Cuttino Mobley had to retire from the NBA from. And there was another young man at 25th and Diamond that passed away as well that was in high school at the time. So, there's a lot of times that it happens, but nobody follows up to kind of really point it out and what could have been preventative, and then say, hey, as a league, as a public league, a Catholic league, like how do we get the kids together to just make sure everybody's healthy and, set a better screening schedule?
All right, so Mike, talking about the basketball, because there has been so much to talk about in these years. You do it for 5 days, and every day is just a packed day. You've also added the women's side of the Danny Rumph teams that we have last year as well. So if you could, I wanted to ask you this, because I don't think I've ever really asked you this. I've been around so many of them. I've seen you there. I've seen you after it was all done and we talk about it. But what are some that stand out to you, some of the years that stand out to you in terms of whether it's a game that happened on a Thursday or Friday versus the championship game, some of your more memorable, not necessarily your favorites, just more of your memorable games and performances by an individual?
I think it's always like some of the layers to like why something happened, what happened afterwards. So like one of them, Evan Turner came out, played day one and was terrible. Yeah. So the crowd was getting on him. Philly didn't let him live.
Is that the one at Arcadia? I remember that. Yeah.
And then he came back the next day and showed you why he was Evan Turner. So I think that just gives you a lot about somebody's character, that they're ready for this city. They're ready to take a little bit of abuse, but then bounce right back and show you something. And everybody has a good day, a bad day. And, we've had plenty of guys walk in the gym and not really realize what they were getting themselves into from a competitive standpoint, the crowd. So I think the Evan Turner coming back is always a special moment. And then Mo Spates, who played very early on, probably one of our earlier pros. We walked into a small rec center. He ducked his head in to go sign like the waiver. And by the time he came back out, it was a packed rec center, and he didn't know what was going on. So the first play of the game, they throw the ball inbounds. Guy bumps him, turns around, hits a shot. He ran into Wayne Marshall. Wayne Marshall, 6'10", 6'11", played at Temple from the Mount Airy, Germantown area. Wayne's an NBA player, and Mo Spates thought he was coming to just play a little basketball, and then ran into, somebody like Wayne Marshall, that's a phenomenal basketball player, still playing professionally, almost 20 years later for him. So, those moments that people walk in and be like, Philly basketball is serious, I think it always kind of like stands out a little bit.
I think that's one of the coolest things about just like, generally like pro-ams or the events at like Rucker, whether it's now or in the past, or the Drew League out in LA, where everyone's resume it's left at the door, right? Once you're there, and you might be in a very hostile environment. You've played in, some of these guys on very big stages, conference finals, all that. But now you're in unfamiliar territory in like either like a little gym, or you're at a park somewhere, and some guy who was the man on whether it's high school, college team, whatever, all his people are there and they're yelling at you, they're screaming at you, getting it. It's a really different type of environment than some of these guys are used to. And it can go in like any direction from there. That's the beautiful part about it.
It's not for everybody, right? Like you've got to enjoy that environment. Like when James Harden played, he was bantering back and forth. Watch what I do now. I'm about to do this. And
he loves that stuff.
And he loves it. And you've got to be self kind of fueled a lot of times to want to go into somebody's backyard and play at that level. Yeah. You know, I believe like, you know, we got 3 brothers in the neighborhood called the Parker brothers, you know, and Joe would be there, you know, giving everybody everything you wanted if you walked in that gym playing against the home team. His little brother Chop, Adi, like those guys were right there going toe to toe to make sure that they were arguing for the Rumph Center team. And then Deontay Christmas, his dad was an amazing character on the sidelines yelling, you know, and being able to see them banter, but it's all love, right? It's the banter of who's better, who this kid plays here, but you're on the court, you got to prove it in that moment. So that, like, that's also what has always made us special since we started was everybody has a sense of like ownership, involvement, but at the end of the day, it's all about like anything can happen in between those lines, but it's all love. You know, when you get off it, right? We can banter afterwards. We can argue. We can have some fun. And that's the fun of summer basketball.
And it's also all like this event specifically is for the great cause too. So everyone sort of knows like game ends. Maybe you played bad, maybe you lost, but it's still it's all love. You're coming together for something that's bigger than that game or yourself for sure.
And we always, like every gym we've ever played in, you know, we've been at a couple different colleges. We always say we make everywhere feel like Mallory Playground or the Rumph Center. You know, there's always that moment, people on the sidelines, people getting intense, and then it becomes like just an amazing moment that people will kind of cherish forever. Like I was there when that happened. So we've had I could probably rattle off 10 of those cool moments. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what makes it fun. Like people have core moments that they just, you know, lived and breathed it, and we're just really excited about it.
The gym is always intimate. It's so this year again, it's back at Community College of Philadelphia. So the gym is always intimate. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's just right. And there'll be times I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and Mike is just walking around while everybody's doing their thing. And of course they're playing. And to your point, everybody's so into it. You just start to see people foul on the floor accidentally because it's like you're just walking on the baseline or the sideline. Because you're just so into the game of what's happening. You see Tyrese Maxey out there, and Tyrese Maxey is going against some player from Philadelphia, and they're like, okay, cool. Now let's do it. And then Maxey's coming down, knocking down the three. It's sort of like the Tim Hardaway Jr., Deion Waiters thing in the rookie game, and where they're just going, you come down, you knock down. All right, cool. Give me the ball. I'm coming down.
That's what you don't get a lot of.
That's what it is
like
at the Rumph
pro settings either, right? Is that it's just 2 guys for 4 or 5 minutes in a row, just trying to break each other down.
And
going
everybody
at each other
knows it. They give them the ball for that reason. Yeah.
Another amazing historical moment. We had a gentleman named Mark 50 versus Jason Tatum. Went back and forth probably 3 or 4 straight times. And the key in summer basketball, somebody scores on you, there's like an unwritten wave of give me the ball right back.
Rock.
And it's going to be my turn, right? And that's your time that you got to make a bucket. You got to make something happen. You got to get the crowd involved. And, Mark is a Division III basketball player, has done a great job creating a professional career for himself. And, to him to have that moment and live up to it will forever be, talked about as well. And, now with all the cameras everywhere, it's like, those are great things that, and hopefully in 40, 50 years is still floating around and people just talking about how much fun they have.
I always go back to, I was telling them earlier, when Flip is in the building, it's always a show. When Flip Murray is in there, always put on the show, and whether it's the deep threes, the crossovers, the stuff that we had seen in the Seattle Supersonics uniform playing in the league, or just seeing him around the way just doing that. And he would do it for so many years. And even when he retired, he came back out and it was like, oh yeah, that's just Flip. It's just Flip doing his thing.
People never really realize how old Flip was. I think his actual birthday, I think, was the other day. But for him to come out there and still play at a high level where he was still going to get 4 or 5 people, he was still going to make a bunch of good threes. And then if anybody remembers the All-Star game that he was at with, it was him and Kirk Heinrich, I believe, going back and forth. It's like that was everyday Flip. And, he's probably had the greatest 30 days in NBA history, in this with that Seattle team. But, that's the type of moments. And we like the guys that come back and play and feel the love of basketball, right? It's also about coming back, feeling the love of the city, enjoying the game. It's not about where you're playing, who you're playing with, the paid aspect of it. It's about, just come back and feel the love, whether you're in the stands or you're on the court. Like Irison's come out probably 4 times for us. And, you know, the way that he engages with kids, the way that he just comes in and feels like I want to be in here for a few hours. I'm going to sign every autograph. I'm going to take a million pictures. You know, I think that's what also makes it a lot of fun. And Tyrese did the same thing a couple years ago where he was there just taking photos, interacting with the kids and, you know, allowing them to just be in his world. And, you know, I like to see guys that leave and say, man, I had a lot of fun there. It wasn't about the kids having fun too. They had fun. And I think that's what makes it cool.
And we always talk about Maxey and the personality. We just discussed it just in general. I remember that day because it was him and Isaiah Joe. Everybody's going to Maxey, naturally. He's like, oh, hey, everybody, Isaiah Joe's right there. So make sure his buddy gets the love also. And then they go out there and they win the championship with the Mars Twins and do their thing. But that's just Tyrese Maxey. And to your point, just ingrained in the community. So a lot of times,
one of many reasons that he's loved by so many people around the city.
Yeah, but so as we get ready to wrap things up and talking about the 19th annual Danny Rumph Classic, again, beginning on Thursday at Community College of Philadelphia, August 1st through the 5th, championship game on Monday night at Community College of Philadelphia. Get your tickets, get the merchandise, all of that stuff. And Mike will tell you a little bit more that he needs to share. You never know who's going to show up. Kyle and Mike talked about James Harden. They've talked about Jason Tatum, and people didn't know. Mike may have gotten a little inkling, but people did not know.
I would assume Mike's got more than a little inkling.
That these players are going to show up. So, again, Iverson showing up, Joel Embiid, Brett Brown sitting courtside. You never know who's going to show up. So you might want to be in the building. It's always a great time. Again, August 1st through the 5th, Community College of Philadelphia, the 19th annual Danny Rumph Classic. Mike, you want to add any more to it just for the people out there to know so they can show up because we'll be there. So you might as well come out and show up.
We go August 1st to the 5th. We have 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. We have 2 games on Saturday on the men's division. We have 2 women's games. Then we have 2 men's games on Sunday and then championship game Monday night. So it's a full 5 days of just amazing Philadelphia basketball. We touch the complete ecosystem from the men's, the women's to the kids, just allowing everybody to have a part of the event. You know, main focus has been on the men's side, but, you know, women's basketball, you know, is on such a, you know, phenomenal trajectory that we just wanted to make sure that we show them a little bit of love and have them participate. And, you know, they played last year in 1 game and we were like, man, this is just an amazing time. You know, I love the energy that the girls brought. So we made that like more of a 2-day tournament for them. And, you know, before our championship game Monday night, we give the middle school kids an opportunity to jump on the floor and play little 20-minute games just so everybody, you know, we call them the next Bright Star game. So
there you go.
Everybody has a chance to come out there and really, you know, get a feel like they're a part of the event. And that's what this event about. It's not just about, you know, one person, a couple of people. It's about everybody, you know, being able to come and spend some time together and, you know, just enjoy, you know, basketball in Philadelphia outside of the 76ers. So.
Yep. So make sure everybody shows up. You're there. Again, merchandise is there. T-shirts, shorts, jerseys, hats, so many things. The wristbands that are also available for you.
Devon's got a whole collection, it looks like. He showed up with a shirt the other day. Now he's got the hat. I got to raid Devon's closet before I show up this weekend, I think.
I think Mike and I have known each other for like a good, 10 years now? We've been running. Yeah, a little bit more than that. And it's always been fun just talking basketball, just being a part of it, just coming in and just watching some good hoops and seeing some good stuff.
And I assume you're not going to tell us who's showing up, right?
No,
it's always a surprise. I know that's one of the things I know for sure is that that's the whole point of coming, everybody, right? Is you don't know who's going to be there until you're there.
We've got a great collection of coaches and people in the space, right? Chuck Ellis Workouts has a team. Chuck is one of the best NBA trainers in the city. Jamie Boyer, 8i Media, Blue Magic, coached by Joe Ross. You know, the Rumph Center still has a team with a bunch of great players. You know, the Givens brothers, Sammy and Shannon, played at Drexel. You know, there's another company called Basketball Finders and TBB, very, very integrated in basketball around this city. Rec 6, a South Philadelphia brand with Scoop Jardine.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many people across it. You know, Tony T does these Coach Tone runs. So, you know, everybody that coaches and it's a part of it helps make it special. Like they're all really integrated in what happens, you know, across the city. So we like to think that all the guys coming out of college, all the guys that play overseas and, you know, being fortunate to have some great guests, but there's also a lot of really great local talent, right? There's a guy, Vinny Simpson, you know, Vinny every year played at Hampton University, every year puts on an amazing show. So for him to even participate and play at the level that he does. It's like you're going to see great Philadelphia basketball. We're just fortunate enough to have some guest appearances that come in, but we like everybody to want to come out and see, what does it really mean to be a player here and watch those guys that could be overseas and, just enjoy the day. And, you may be blessed and, sometimes you're going to watch me and Devon shoot around at halftime.
Right. But we also had a question before I give you this question quickly from Winona, because she wants to know about the streaming aspect of it because she's going to be out of town. I want to make sure we let everybody know. Make sure you go sign up for the Die Hard program and get in on the Die Hard program and sign up to read the articles, of course, from Derek and Kyle, Sixers related. Training camp underway for the Eagles, Bo and Zach, and Les Bowen getting things going. And the trade deadline is 6 p.m., Derek, for Major League Baseball. I think it's 6 p.m. tonight. And we have a trade deadline show tonight. So, of course, with all the news going on with the Phillies, Mike is at a lot of Phillies baseball games as well. Make sure you check in with the gang from 5 to 7 as they have their trade deadline show coming up at 5 o'clock here on PHLY Sports. So make sure you go and check them out. So streaming, Mike, quickly, just to answer Winona's question. She says she's going to be in Florida. She wants to know about the streaming. Yes, there are streaming options for you to check out the Danny Rumph Classic.
We put everything. I think we post a million times on Instagram at Rumph Classic, RUMPH Classic. We've got a bunch of curated content. We don't do any direct streaming to watch the full games. But we're working on, the NBA on maybe doing something. But we like to make sure that everybody's in the building. But we do have a tremendous social support team that we post consistently. And there's also a RumphClassic.com. There's probably about 15 to 20 articles and videos that go up on that every day during the event. And so that we try to make sure that socially we're keeping everybody up to date. On Twitter, we tap into another kind of live feed that we kind of direct a link to the actual like game highlights and scores. So on Twitter, Rumph Classic, Instagram at Rumph Classic. We keep everybody up to date almost by the minute, but we don't do the full necessary games yet.
There will be some podcasts, though, that are happening for the days with the Danny Rumph Classic.
We're blessed to have Mr. Devon in the building to host a podcast, hopefully for us for a few hours. But, there's a lot of fun things that we're doing just to get everybody engaged and involved and just kind of like launching different type of content streams to try to, find people where they are. I know you guys know all about that.
Might have to pull these guys in and talk some hoops while we're at the Danny Rumph Classic. Have you been? You haven't been yet. You haven't been. You haven't been yet. As
I went.
Way to call us out.
Way too long ago.
No, it's like about. Need you there.
My sense of time is so warped. After it's like 2020, before and after. I think probably like 2019, 2018. Okay.
Yeah,
right around there, if I remember correctly.
So
it's been a while.
If you ever watched a video, you're part of the family. So we appreciate you guys just even knowing about it.
That's right. So Winona says thanks. She got the info. She'll check out it as the best way she can while she's in Florida. Again, check out at Rumph Classic on socials, on both Instagram and Twitter, and you'll see everything there. I'll do my best to post some things. If you follow us, I'll do my best to post some things on there. 4 things from Thursday through Monday as well. But again, Mike Morak hanging out with us from the Danny Rumph Classic, the 19th annual Save the Next Bright Star is what they're trying to do. Make sure that they do that with the defibrillators in all the buildings, have heart screenings throughout the year to help out some young kids. And just to give people an opportunity, again, to just play some good basketball, but also raise money for a great cause.
And that's actually probably a good question before we get out of here is like, is there a best way for people to help? Like, let's say they're out of town, they can't come, for people to contribute to the cause and, help out with the mission that you guys have at the Rumph Classic?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we also have a foundation website that's connected to RumphClassic.com, but it's DERII foundation.org. Allows you to kind of directly understand like what the foundation has going on, but also donate via the donation link as well. So, I believe those links are also in the Rumph Classic IG page bio, but, would love for anybody else to support. Our key is also, the awareness, I think, is the first thing, being able to do something exciting together, and then also always keeping the main thing, making an impact and trying to save the next bright star. And, that's why we're excited to, still be able to get defibrillators out, still be able to do these screenings. So like it's always fun to kind of talk to you guys because the hoops is cool. It's what some people want to talk about. But the main reason that we're really there that keeps us inspired and coming back every year is, being able to make an impact.
And Danny's mom is always involved in it as well.
Danny's mom, Danny's dad,
yep.
His uncle, the family, it's all one big organization, right? So Danny's uncle is the president of the foundation. Marcus Owens does an incredible job just doing, a lot of things. Like we have a podcast. Actually, we need you guys teaching one of our podcast classes. So we've got another course teaching podcasting for young kids.
They're still teaching most of us, not Devon, the other two on the set. We're still learning, So maybe we take the class.
There's always these fun things going on, but I think trying to also get the understanding of what kids are looking to do. How do we give them some skill sets?
Yep.
So being able to lead that. So Danny's mom is there every day. Obviously, like Miss Candy is going to be out there. She's going to be selling some food at the event this year. Danny's uncle is at the front door. His dad's floating around. The rest of the family is. They also have a large family. So I think being able to have those guys specifically integrated, we're doing as a collective as a whole. So a lot of our volunteers have been there for the whole 19 years with us, right? Miss Janet doing the registration has been the same person that was carrying little boxes almost 20 years ago. So. I think it's all one family of how we kind of move and how we kind of run the event with that main focal point. Let's, go crazy for 50 plus hours for this week. And then, let's get back to the, more of the community work.
Yep, absolutely. And for the young kids too, for people out there with the young kids, Victory in North, you want to tell them about that with all this stuff going on with the young kids, especially in the summer where they need some hoops to play.
2 fun things we're doing. I have another brand called Victory in Philly. Victory in Philly, we're doing 40 clinics around Philadelphia throughout the month of August. Shout out to the 76ers in Spalding. Dave Gould came in and really embraced the mission of how do we empower young people through the game of basketball. So every kid that participates is going to walk home with a basketball, a T-shirt. We're going to put 100 plus nets up around the city. We're going to paint,
great.
10 plus courts. But the key is a skills and drills clinic. Let people understand what basketball is. Take a ball, make sure that nets are around the city, different playgrounds, and just let them get inspired by the game. Like the world of basketball and the game of basketball has done so much for me personally. So it's being able to do that. So that's part of Legendary Summer Hoops Month. Councilman Isaiah Thomas, Raheem Thompson, we're empowering how do we connect all these organizations doing great basketball work in Philadelphia. So part of that is going to be doing all these clinics around the city. And then part of our Victory in Philly brand is Victory in North, which is a free skills and drills 4 days a week in North Philadelphia at Crystal Ray High School. Whereas we're able to kind of rethink what does basketball development from a community side look like. So anybody that's looking to participate, it's at Victory in North on Instagram. Being able to come by, everything is free for the kids. And being able to make sure that we're providing the basic necessities of life skills through the game of basketball. And we've got some of the best instructors. Aaron Owens, I don't know if he was on your list.
Hey, yo.
We'll get to him later.
Yeah. We've got AO was on.
Hey, yo. I can still hear the
Tango yelling that. But yeah, it's Aaron. We got some of the best basketball minds that do that weekly for the kids. But I think the importance is teaching kids the game of basketball and what comes with that within life through that. So that's a phenomenal program that anybody's welcome to sign up for.
So, folks, we wanted to take a step away from Sixers basketball talk today to talk about, again, a great cause, a great event that happens every summer around this time, right at the start of August, maybe sometimes at the end of July going into August. Again, the Danny Rumph Classic, always doing great work. Mike is a huge, huge part of that. So we wanted to step away from the Sixers talk and the seriousness of that or not. And get
nothing serious with the Sixers happening in late July.
Yeah, not in late July. So we wanted, Mike, thank you for coming in, man. Appreciate you stepping in. I know we always talk about doing stuff like this. So appreciate you coming in. Mike Morak again. From the Danny Rumph Classic, coming in and stepping in. Don't forget about the Victory in Philly and Victory in North overall. Kyle, you want to do a little send off?
No, I'm good. I'm resting my voice today.
Rested voice. So
no roll call today. Thank you everybody for being here.
We'll be back tomorrow. Well, Derek will be back
for being
tomorrow.
here. Most importantly,
Derek will be back tomorrow. Kyle and I are actually off.
Off day, baby.
Derek and Bree will be here tomorrow. Do you want to announce, or you want to wait till tomorrow to let everybody know who you're doing the show with?
Zach Berman. Zach's coming on.
Zach, we had a little team.
A repeat guest.
Need it. Always great talking some basketball with Zach from the PHLY Eagles podcast. Coming in and sit in and talk some hoops with Derek Bodner tomorrow as well. We'll be back on Thursday, and then Thursday, Danny Rumph Classic gets underway. So be there that night.
And Friday, I got a surprise for y'all. Don't you worry. We got some interesting things coming into this week.
So for everybody, again, for Derek, Kyle, for Mike, for Bree, we appreciate everybody. No roll call today, Martian. We'll get back to it on Thursday, or Derek will do it tomorrow. We'll get back to that a little bit later. Until then, we'll talk to you on Thursday. Everybody have a great rest of your day. And I'm going to let Kyle and Mike now geek out over the and one conversation because Mike was knee deep in it. Yeah. Kyle has a lot of questions. I'll let him ask them. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday with Derek and Thursday with Kyle as well. Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks again. Talk to you then.
We all silly like the mayor.